Hello, thanks for joining me. So today we're going to talk about my translation project updates for the first quarter of 2020. I am speaking to you from quarantine during a time of worldwide pandemic, but I am healthy. I do not believe that I have contracted COVID-19. I hope that all of you are safe and healthy, and this has certainly given me some time to work on translation projects. So, for starters, very early in the year, I was picking away at some of the very small scripts that I dumped for Mega Drive games, namely Veritex, the Mega Drive shoot 'em up that I mentioned in my last video. It had a very small ending paragraph of text, so I went ahead and translated that. I have not yet asked for help getting that reinserted, but I do plan to post a help wanted ad for that to romhacking.net sometime soon. Additionally, I mostly translated the script for Mega Panel. This is another very short script for a Mega Drive game that I talked about in the last video, a puzzle game from Namco. And yeah, there are a few lines in it that I didn't get around to translating. I will go ahead and translate those up. I will give it a check for spelling and just make sure that it reads well. And again, I will also post a help wanted ad for that on romhacking.net. So very excited about a couple of small Mega Drive projects here that are now have translated scripts. Next up, just a little thing I wanted to mention. I have had the Yamamura Misa Suspense games, a couple of games in that series, maybe all of them, I kind of forget, scripts that I dumped for those kicking around, and I'd noticed that my buddy Orekan had been playing that game recently, and he knows Japanese. He has actually written quite a popular book on learning Japanese. And I just mentioned that I had the script, and wanted to see if he wanted to take a stab at translating it, as long as he was playing the game and writing a blog post about it. I will go ahead and link. Actually, I don't know if he had finished his blog post, but I'll put a link to his blog in the description anyway, so you guys can check it out, because it's cool. And so he did a little bit of work on that. He did decide to abandon that, and that is fine. That is a common thing. A lot of times, people find that translating games for free just doesn't necessarily agree with them or fit in with what they're doing. And I have to say though, just because that project got a little bit of a start and I started poking at that script, I was like, maybe I'll translate that. I certainly had intended to do that possibly at some point, so maybe that will be sooner rather than later, but it is nothing that I have started on yet. We do have, at the end of January, a release. Always love being able to talk about these patches, getting a public release. It's so exciting. Mado Monogatari A is out in the wild for people to play. Of course, this is a script that I translated, passed it back to Supper, and sounds like Supper and CCCMAR, or maybe the Majin Zenki, sort of integrated my script with the kind of translation conventions established in the previous two translations of Mado Monogatari 2 and 3 on the Game Gear, and that's available for anyone to check out. So I highly recommend, especially if you guys have been playing and enjoying those Mado Monogatari games in English, that you take a look at the last Mado Monogatari or Sorcery Saga game, dungeon crawler, released in that series for the Game Gear. Now, another release not so long after that, just maybe about a couple weeks, on February 14th, we have another Mado Monogatari game, Mado Monogatari 1 or Sorcery Saga 1 for the Mega Drive. So very exciting. I love the look of this game. I just think it looks great on the Mega Drive. It is a reimagining of course, Sorcery Saga 1 or Monomonogatari 1. It features a slightly different battle mechanic than the other games, so maybe something a little bit more in line with the Super Nintendo games. You can see on these kind of 16-bit systems, it seems like Compile was trying to mix things up a little bit with the battle system, do something a little different with those games, but it still seems like it's very similar in plot to the other, the Game Gear version, at least, of Monomonogatari 1, but there are also differences. So even if you've played Monomonogatari 1 on the Game Gear, I highly recommend that you check out the Mega Drive release. Very exciting, a really, really cool English language patch for that. I forget if I mentioned my involvement on that really was just dumping the script. This is another one that was translated by Danamajin Zenki, and edited by Supper, hacked by Supper, edited by CCC Mar. So congratulations to those guys on that release. Really excited to see that. Next up, so yeah, I kept doing some translation, and this might have been like the most fun thing out of all of this when it comes down to it, that I worked on in this first quarter, is translating the script for Wonder Momo. Again, like I said, it's kind of a juvenile game, I guess, but it's fun. The script was fun to translate. Again, it's very short. And well, I think what was nice about it was I got to make some puns. I think I did a pretty good job with one or two puns, and it's just just the lines are just delivered with some a wink and a nod and some charm, I think. So so that was fun. It was fun to translate. Again, I'm going to probably post a help wanted ad for this. Wonder Momo is a PC Engine game, so I may go to the PC Engine Bible forums, maybe poke around there a little bit more in particular for some help. But I might just post a help wanted out on romhacking.net. Hopefully we can get that inserted. I think that will be a really fun release. I did want to mention in relation to that too, just something that popped up was this old song. There was a line at the end where Momo says "Viva non non," and I was like, what is this exactly? So in researching that, what I found is that there's this band called the Drifters, and they released this song. If I can find what it was called. Oh yeah, so it's E. It's like hot water, like you, Dana. So that is like it's a hot spring song, I guess, and it sounds like it might have been released by someone else beforehand, or maybe it's just sort of like a little bit more of a folk song or something like that. But yeah, it's just kind of like this goofy, catchy song, right? And so I guess they added some sort of unique lyrics to this where they say like ba-bang, ba-bang, bang, bang, and they say viva non non. And so everyone kind of wants to know, what does this mean? Because it was just like these goofy lyrics in this popular song from the late 60s. So I found this website, worldfolksong.com, actually, and it talks about this a little bit. So it says, the meaning of viva non non is considered to be a meaningless musical word for adjusting the tone of the music, similar to the above mentioned, the ba-bang, ba-bang. They were saying, in regarding its etymology, that viva means everybody in Italian and Spanish, and the term non non can be derived from non non meaning no in French, and so they're just saying it might have some relation to these like hostess clubs that the drifters would go to. That I'd seen that mentioned somewhere else too. That in an interview, one of the band members had mentioned that. I think that Wonder Momo and the people that developed that game are making a direct reference to that song. And continuing to translate too, I didn't necessarily finish a lot of translations here. I'm poking is what I call it. I'm poking at translations, and that's fun. Like, I don't have to. I'm gonna finish these scripts, but I'm just kind of enjoying myself. Just taking doing a little translation here on one, a little translation there on another. So I did a little translation on Pachinko Kunyan, which I had mentioned in my previous video. So far, it's been actually a lot of trivia about tea, which is rather interesting for me. I seem to remember one of the trivias was like, do you know the three major types of tea, something like that? And it was they're sort of from different regions, so it was sort of like Indian tea is one kind of Indian tea, and this one kind of Chinese tea and stuff. So it's things like that, which have been fun so far. But I'm curious to see how they're used in the game. I also poked at the script for Patlabor, also on the Mega Drive. I think I'm pretty interested in fully translating the scripts for both of those games. Patlabor has been kind of fun too. Like I said, it's an adventure game, and I kind of have been enjoying translating those, I think. The one challenge with this so far has been some of the character dialogue is pretty dialectical. There's Japanese in there that is definitely non-standard, and so that, for me, especially as a non-native speaker or learner, reader of the language, something that I have to research even more to really make sure that I'm getting a proper translation for those lines. So those can be a little challenging, but I'm enjoying that so far, so I'm going to keep working on that game. Next, there was another release. I think this is the last of 3 releases here that I have had something to do with, and this is Aretha 2. So excited. Dynamic Designs, Task Force in particular, really came through with finishing that up. I believe that CCCMAR, as well as some other folks, helped out with the playtesting of this, which was key to getting this game released. So thank you very much to everyone who playtested this game. There are still maybe a couple lingering technical issues that do not interfere with the ability to finish or enjoy the game. So I highly recommend that if people like RPGs, if you liked the first Aretha, that you check out this release, an English language patch for Aretha 2 on the Super Nintendo or Super Famicom as it was released in Japan. Just excited to have that out. It was just a really long time ago, not quite a decade, but 8-9 years ago, maybe more. I guess that would be a decade. I think it's been a good 9 years since that project's just kind of just been languishing around. So really excited to have that released and out there. Next up, we have just picking away at some of these scripts that I've had around. I worked on Fire Mustang. It's funny, I kind of thought that I had translated more of this than I had because it is such a short script, but I really only translated a few lines of it. But there are not that many lines in the whole game, so you can consider that I'm pretty much halfway done with the sort of beginning stage screens, and then I still need to translate the ending. So definitely, I've not made it very far in translating Fire Mustang, but it's such a small script, it will not take me very long. It's just that it does actually reference a lot of real-world World War II settings of battles and things like that. There was, I want to say Truck Island, something like that. I might have that wrong, but I don't know a lot about the specifics of World War II. It was not something I lived through And I've done some reading on World War II, but in terms of the specifics of battles and things like that, I'm not super up on it. So I'm having to do some research, I guess, is the point that I'm making. I'm looking up a lot of things about real world battles and locations and names of things, just to make sure that I'm translating them accurately and correctly. So that's coming along. I'm sure that will be done shortly. I also have been sort of quote-unquote translating TM Network. And when I say quote-unquote, what I mean is that I use a translation memory, which I coded myself, and I call it a translation memory because it's something that I enter my translations into, and then I can call them back up again later for reference. I coded it to work kind of like machine translation, though, so you can consider it kind of like my own Google Translate. I don't know how other sort of machine-assisted translation is done. I know there are some other programs that are used somewhat commonly in professional translation, and I would assume that they work somewhat similarly to the program that I coded. But I made that for myself a number 6-7 years ago, maybe 8 years ago. The time just kind of goes by here. But I use it, and the nice thing is that the more I enter into it, the better it gets. So I'm pretty committed to the concept of it, because it actually, I think it does help me, and it does just make sense to, as I translate things, to just enter the translations of the words and phrases and things into it and use it to translate these scripts. So my point is that what I've done on TM Network is just gone through, I'm 50% the way through the script of translating anything that isn't in my translation memory, any words or phrases that appear in the game that don't come up well in my translation memory. If I just throw the line in and it spits it back and it's essentially gobbledygook, I'm getting that all put into the translation memory. So I'm 50% done with that, and I think once I'm done with that, I'm just going to finish the whole script and then go through and write my first draft. So really none of the writing has happened yet, but a lot of the translation has happened, if that makes sense. And TM Network it's fun to translate so far. I think that's the main reason why I'm 50% done with it. And really, I feel like I've put a lot of work into TM Network, maybe even compared to some of these other things, especially since a lot of these other games or scripts are much smaller. It's I don't even know that it's a great story or anything, but I'm enjoying translating it, so that might get finished up here pretty soon. I did dump a script, and I think it's the only script that I dumped in this 3-month period. I've been doing mostly translation, but I dumped a script for Genpei Touma-den. Now, this is a game that appears on multiple platforms. I think it was an arcade game. It's kind of, I think, based on a historical, samurai or something. I don't know a whole lot about the history of it. It could be mythological, it could be historical. Research it yourself if you would like to know more about Genpei Touma-den. But at any rate, I dumped the Famicom version. So there is a Famicom game. And what was interesting about this, again, being quarantined, I've just been sitting around, trying to watch some YouTube things that are calming to me. And one of the things I really enjoy is Dr. Sparkle's Crontendo and Cron series of videos, Cron Turbo and Cron Sega. We were blessed with another episode Halloween of last year, and I've been eagerly awaiting another episode here. But he's been playing chronologically through all of the Famicom NES and Famicom Disk System games in his Nintendo series, which is just wonderful for somebody like me, or probably you guys, if you're interested in these, Japanese Famicom games that never were released in English. So my point with Genpei Tomaden is he called it an RPG. And I was looking at it and I was like, wow, this really does kind of look like an RPG. And I'm like, normally people are pretty into like the RPGs on the Famicom and the Super Famicom. And by extension of that, I have been, pretty aware of a lot of these RPGs and in the fan translation circles, and like this has not been on my radar, and I don't feel like it's been on other people's radars. And I was like, why is that? Well, it's because it's a board game. So I looked it up. It tends to be classified as a board game, and it's very interesting because it's essentially a hybrid. So the game came with a physical board game. So you could set up the physical board game. Think of this kind of like those board games that come with a VHS tape. You put the VHS tape in and use that as a visual aid and a guide to playing the board game. That's how this worked, but with a Famicom game. And it seems that you could play the Famicom game single player as something of an RPG, just on its own, or you could play the board game version in conjunction with the Famicom cart. And it seems like maybe that was made a little bit more for playing it with other people, so you could play it with 2 to 4 people, something like that. So that seemed very interesting, and so I took a look at it, made a table file for it, with the text encoding, and found all the text in it that I could find and dumped a script for that. So yeah, that's exciting. It's maybe 26K, something like that. So I don't know that that's a high priority for me, but I might hop on that at some point. I think it's a cool script to have dumped. I also, poked a little bit at the script for Ninku on the Game Gear. Really, again, I just started putting it into my translation memory, going, how finicky do I think this sort of script is going to be? And it seems pretty straightforward. So I was kind of hoping that. I guess I had passed. I feel like I had passed Ninku 1 and 2 onto the Majin Zenki. I think that was it. And I was kind of hoping the Majin Zenki might translate that up, and maybe Supper and CCC Mar and them would release the Ninku games, Ninku 1 and 2. But it sounds like they might be passing on those. So I'm gonna plan to go ahead and translate up the script for Ninku. I don't think that's going to be very hard. I'll look at Ninku 2. I have a feeling that'll be pretty similar. So, maybe we'll see those coming up here before too long, and hopefully I can get someone to work on those with me. Something that Supper and the assuming CCC Mar will be working on me with is Magic Knight Rare Earth 2. So, that was kind of my big New Year's resolution, I guess. So rest assured, I have actually been doing a lot of work on translating that script. I would say I'm, probably around halfway through. Definitely taking my time with it. You can see I'm poking at a whole bunch of other scripts. Well, I feel like Rare Earth 2 has been priority number 1, and if Rare Earth 2 is priority number 1, and I've also, kind of translated 50% of TM Network, then I've been cycling through projects a lot, just kind of keeping myself from getting burned out. But yeah, Magic Knight Rare Earth 2 is great. It's a pretty easy script to translate. All in all, there's always challenges, but it's fun, and I like the game. I think it looks really cool. And I'm very excited about the project. I think Supper is ready to go on it. So as soon as I get that finished up, I'll pass that on to him. Considering that it's been 3 months and I'm only halfway through, I would say expect me to be done with it by the middle of the year. Certainly, if I make a concerted effort and really, knock it out, I could have it done much sooner than that. But if I continue my kind of leisurely pace on it, I would say by July, that script will be done, and I could probably pass that on to be inserted and tested and all of that stuff. So if that gives you any idea of what the schedule could be on that, I think it's up. I don't think it would be overly optimistic to say that could be released this year. I think that's pretty realistic. Also, I guess finally here, kind of not really a surprise project, but a project that has been on the back burner, and I've been trying to get going for a really long time here, a number of years it seems like at this point, is Zoids, and we have had some excellent progress on Zoids. I want to say this is pronounced Donka. Helped me out with this, hacking this game. Donka, ROM hacker, encountered on romhacking.net for many years. Actually, interestingly, had helped me with a question about the script that I'd had years ago when I was translating the script for Zoids. Recently reached out to me and was like, hey, do you want to work on a project or two? And I was like, yeah, I do. So we ended up settling on Zoids, and anyway, they've recently gotten back to me with an inserted English script. It's a work in progress, but I think it's fully inserted. At least what we had. I've done a little play testing on it. It seems like we might, I might personally have missed maybe a line of text or two here and there. We might need to find. Donka is still working on the menus and stuff like that, but I don't quite know. I may do a kind of a running translation playthrough and post it here to YouTube like I did for Pachinko Pachio-kun there, Mazase Pachi Pro Pachio-kun. Or I might watch some videos. Like I think there's a Nico video of somebody doing a full playthrough of Zoids, and I may use that as reference to kind of check my script. At first I was a little concerned because Donka was like, hey, what's up with this line in the script, and I was just kind of like, oh man, did I, he said some of it was a little a little incomprehensible, and he was wondering if it had been translated in context or not. And so I was starting to feel a little self-conscious, but I think really it's just there's an interaction in the beginning of the game that is a little awkward, but I think it's I don't think it was poorly translated. I just think it's going to need a little polish. There's one line that I screwed up also near the beginning of the game a little bit, but again, we're just a little bit of polishing here and there. And that script is definitely ready to go. It just needs to be checked in context a little bit. So yeah, like I said, I may do that publicly or I may not, but Zoids on the Famicom, I feel like that's just a project that I've had languishing around for so long. I'm really excited about getting that released. It's I just think it's like a cute, charming, sort of fun game. No one's gonna love that game, I don't think, but I'll have to play it and see. CCCMar, I believe we touched base about it. Yeah, I touched base with him on Twitter, and he agreed to help testing with that too. So look for that. Maybe by the time I'm doing another one of these updates, I might, we might be talking about how that was released rather than how it needs to be play tested and finished up. So that's what I've got right now. In terms of the upcoming months, aside from Zoids, I don't know of anything that, well, I shouldn't say that. It sounds like Supper and that crew might have something coming up. I don't know if it's anything that I had anything to do with, but I do hear rumblings that they've got something in the queue. So maybe keep an eye out for something from them. I don't know what it is. It'll be a big surprise. And I'm gonna keep working on some of these scripts. So we'll see how this goes. Maybe TM Network, Magic Knight Rareath 2. hopefully it's going to get finished up, and we'll see what else gets worked on. So hope you'll be looking forward to that, and thanks for joining me. Like I said, stay healthy, stay safe, guys. And just don't stress out too much. Don't be glued to the news or Twitter or whatever it is too much. Just disconnect a little bit. Things are going to be okay. It's trying times. Hang in there. I hope you guys are doing good. All right, take care.